I'm here with John Caird, and we've been whistled backstage. This is all very exciting.
Company office.
Yes. Thank you so much for speaking to me today. It's the preview of Daddy Longlegs, isn't it? Yeah. How long has this been going on? When did it start?
Well, it started about 2 years ago in America. It's been all around America now to 15 different cities. And these are the same actors that have been doing it. We've actually had 2 companies that's been so successful.
And do you watch from the audience?
Oh, yeah, always, yeah.
And see their reaction?
Yeah, yes, that's part of my job is to sit amongst the audience and to feel what they're feeling. Yeah. And that way I can tell how I can improve the show.
And as a preview, will there be changes made before?
Very few now, because we've been running it for a couple of years now, and we're down to very, very fine tuning. Mm-hmm. I might put in a half a page of new dialogue tomorrow, just because I suddenly felt a little gap, and I thought the actors might need something to, ginger them up a bit.
And so for anyone that wants to come and see it, what can they expect?
It's a very beautiful, heartwarming story about how a young girl grows up from just coming out of her adolescence in the orphanage to becoming a grown-up woman. And it's a story of personal growth, and it's very beautiful. A story of personal growth that turns into a love story.
Oh, are you a romantic then, John?
Very, very terrible romantic I am.
Me too. Okay, thanks, John. We're going to go and watch it.
We'll talk again at the interval. And,
yes, I'll have questions.
Yeah, you will.
I'll be taking notes.
I'm sure you will, yeah.
I'm baffled and perplexed, oh Captain, my Captain, I really must get back to work. I wonder what you'll write me next.
Yeah, and also after doing Jane Eyre with John, we sat around for a couple of years going, what shall we do next?
All right.
And really, I think the critical thing in musicals is really what is the foundation? What's the idea that you're going to build your house upon? Because you can spend years and energy trying to create a musical based on a story that's not very good, as we've seen with other musicals. And it turns out that John's wife, Naoko, who's from Japan, had grown up on the novel, and it's true, John did give it to me, and I did respond to it right away. I thought it should be a one-woman show initially, and that's the song cycle I wrote, and then I resisted the idea of a 2-character musical probably for a few years, and I'm so glad that I was talked out of it, because it obviously works so beautifully with 2 people, and then it just evolved and grew from there.
And my final question would be for you then, you've kind of answered that already, but what is the main theme? Is it that it is about education, more of a woman's story, sort of early 20th century, or is it a romance?
Well, I think it's both, and I think what's critical, I think, to this piece is the romance, but it's also one woman's journey of discovery and understanding and growing up, and you can hear that she's marvelously witty and insightful and ahead of her time. There's one lyric in the song Secret of Happiness where she says the secret of happiness is being in the now. Living in the now. And that's quite contemporary. That's quite a contemporary thought, and yet that's exactly pulled from the novel of Jean Webster in 1912. And that was one of the things that really inspired me and really made me focus and see the imagination and the depth that the novel, the author Jean Webster had, and the character of Jerusha.
Basic story is that she's struggling to escape from being controlled by other people. She wants to be a strong, independent person, but of course she falls in love as well. And so we all know that if you're in love with somebody, you have to relinquish some of your control, or you're never going to be united with them in any way.
I suppose you can't be 2 independent people too much, or then you'd be 2 single people.
Exactly. So there is in every love story there has to be a sort of a yielding, but it comes from both the characters. He too has a big journey to make from being a cocooned, rich, independent person who's never really experienced a relationship, and he gets hugely changed by the person he's helping. Indeed, in the song that he has about charity, he says, you know, who is helping who? In the end, he gains just as much from the experience of having helped her as she does in being helped by him.
Dating seems so much harder nowadays. I think it's hard enough now, and they had to do it all via letters, and then waiting. Oh, I'd be sitting there while waiting for the postman. It's bad enough when I look at the text. I'm like, it's been 3 minutes, and he still hasn't replied. What has he been up to?
Yeah, well, they didn't mind waiting 3 weeks or 3 months for a letter in those days. You know.
Yeah, and then there was a really interesting bit that I found in the play when it was about saying how a woman really, if she's too intelligent, she loses her femininity. I'm not sure of the exact quote, but there's a part in the play, and that really stood out for me. Do you think that is even still true a bit today?
Well, she was objecting to that being said by some preacher who came and preached at the college, and she got fed up with that. I mean, Jerusha is a wonderful person. She's a creation of Jean Webster, who was living in the first century, the first decade of the 20th century. And Jerusha is the portrait of a really proto-feminist person. I mean, she's a young suffragette. She wants the vote for women. She wants equal rights for women. And in that sense, she's an extremely modern character. I mean, without the Jean Websters of this world who wrote the novel, and without characters like Jerusha, women would still be, you know, in the cave. Being dragged around by their hair. You know, it's because of women like that everything changed.
I won't get excited by that idea.
I can see you're just a cave woman at heart.
So finally, what's next for John? How long will this production take you, and then what will follow after this?
This will keep going for several weeks here. It closes on December the 8th, so hurry and see it. There's a lot of noise going on around us now. And then I'm off to do some operas in America next year. I do 3 operas in 3 different towns in America: Los Angeles, Chicago and Houston. Okay. And we're doing this show again in Japan next year, and other shows that I have running in Japan. So I've got shows happening all over the world.
Excellent. Well, I'll just have to come following you around.
You better. You better.
Thank you, John.
Okay, Brooke. Love to see you again.